it well. Played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
So it's about 14 hours since Scottie Scheffler won the PGA Championship. 3 majors now. 2 of the 4 majors won, but 2 Masters, obviously, and now the PGA. Runaway winner. And that's what we're going to talk about here on Slice today. But Sam, before we do, I just want to know whether you want details of every shot of my round yesterday or just the highlights and the lowlights.
I think let's go with the highlights this time. We can have like the full recap on another round, maybe.
I did send a blow-by-blow account to a friend who genuinely does enjoy reading them. But so I'll go very, very brief here. First tee, I almost missed the ball. I get very nervous, Sam. When it was a busy Sunday, I'm playing with a 5 handicapper and 2 11 handicappers who drive it so well. I just get very nervous. I'm afraid. I always have. I think I always will. And I advanced the ball roughly 2 yards. And instead of to the left as well, like towards where people were gathered. Not that 2 yards is far enough to make that an important detail. Anyway, I put another ball. I said, I'm playing 3 off the tee. I apologized to my partner. I mean, strictly speaking, that's probably against the rules because the ball was there, but I couldn't bring myself to try and hit a shot without the help of a tee peg on the second go. Anyway, my second attempt at driving the ball was much, much better. And then I calmed down, right? I lost a couple more balls on the first couple of holes and reminded my friend this is why when they tell me my handicap is wrong, they are in fact wrong, because they forget all this stuff. Anyway, I started playing really well in the middle. Me and my friend, Dan, we were 4 down through 11 holes and we've halved the match. And I won't go into details, but I hit the single best shot of my life to win the 16th. One of the best shots of my life to win the 17th. And on 18, after my 5 handicap partner had seemingly gone out of bounds on a par 3 finishing hole, I thought I'd won us the match with a crisp 8 iron straight at the flag. It hit a downslope and went out of bounds. Anyway, it was a great day on the golf course. We walked off all square, but feeling like winners. And then I got to watch loads and loads of golf on the TV. How was your weekend? Sorry, that almost was blow by blow.
No, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. And the fact you hit the best shot of your life. I mean, you've got to, you have to mention that, right? You can't let that go. You can't let that slide.
You can't. Just for the record, it was a flop shot over trees from a bare lie, about 30 yards, just opened the face fully of my 56 degree, which is the most lofted wedge I've got. And I said to my partner, mate, I'm just going to go for the silly shot because it was a par 3 and I had trees between me and the pin, and I've hit it as hard as I can, as high as I can, and it pitched about 10 feet away from the flag and stopped. It's just way beyond my skill, but that's the beauty of this sport, isn't it? All of us can hit shots that we would get right one time in 100, but when it is the one time, it's great.
That is the beauty of the game. The other thing that's the beauty of the game, I think, is that every time you tee it up, could be either your best round ever, it could be the first time you make a hole-in-one, it could be your best shot ever. There's always something that could happen that day. It could be your worst round ever, but there's a lot of positives that could happen. So it's a fresh day every time you tee it up. It's
Do you know
fresh
what?
slate.
That's the mindset I'm going to adopt next time I'm stood on the tee and my knees are shaking. Like today could be a great day. And the ball's going to just fly out the middle of the club face and go down the fairway instead of towards the clubhouse. Good attitude.
Well, I won't go into much detail about I took my son to the par 3 yesterday. All I'll say is I was 1 under through 5 holes. And wow. I was thinking, this is going to be the best round of my life. It's a par 3. The holes are between 100 and 150 yards. So it's not the same as normal round. But all the same, as a 20 handicapper, being 1 under through 5 holes, I thought I was getting excited. And of course, as soon as you get excited is where it goes terribly wrong. I made a 6 and ended up 3 over, which is still good. But, that's what happened. So
it's nice to have a little burst. Like to be under par for golfers of our standard is it can only happen towards the start of a round, right? It can't happen. You can't be under par through 16 holes when you play like us. So I'm glad you got to experience that.
Yes, it was a nice moment. Before I take us on to a review of the PGA Championship, I did want to mention, I mentioned it briefly last week, but I'll mention it in a bit more detail. We are launching our Sliced newsletter. The first one is going to go out next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. before then, please do sign up. I'm going to put some links on our socials. So that's at SlicePod on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. So I'll put some stuff up on there. We've got a link tree as well where you can find it. Very easy to sign up. Just enter your email address and then you'll get that newsletter. And there's going to be all sorts of stuff in there. Ben's going to put some bonus previews. There'll be some probably giveaways in time. We'll mention at some point we're going to probably have a golf day. So all that sort of stuff will be in there. It's worth it just for the entering your email address. Obviously doesn't cost anything, so please do join that. Right, Ben, the PGA Championship, Scottie Scheffler won by 5, pretty emphatic victory. Did you watch it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I think it was a great spectacle. Really, bar it had an hour of electricity yesterday, didn't it? When Jon Rahm made that charge. I mean, it was so great to see Jon Rahm playing like that again. Reminding us that there are 3, I'll say 4 actually. I think Bryce deserves to be in that, but at the moment there are 4 golfers on that level. I think Xander's probably just below it despite his achievements last year, but it's nice to be reminded that Jon Rahm is Jon Rahm, right? So I really enjoyed that. But the thing I wanted to remind myself today was to make sure we give proper praise for Scottie Scheffler, because what he does is so sort of relentless and predictable. You almost lose the brilliance somehow in there, and it would be too easy. There were so many other things that went on last week that it would be too easy to just, well, yeah, Scheffler, he's good, isn't he? And he won again. But I thought that was seriously impressive, obviously. But the one thing that stood out, I think, is that he's won 3 majors now, and actually, although each of them was by the end straightforward, right? First time he 4-putted the final green and still won.
Yeah.
The second time, I think from the 12th hole onwards at Augusta, we all knew he'd won. And here, I think there was that hour of uncertainty, but he never wasn't the favourite from Saturday morning, Friday evening. In fact, all week, pretty much. So, but in each of the 3, he's overcome something. The first time he really looked like he wobbled over those first 3 holes at Augusta, and then he chips in. The second time on the Saturday, I think he went double bogey on the 10th, bogey on the 11th, and he was in big trouble. And he just worked his way calmly back into it. And then yesterday, the front 9, he didn't have it. And other players would have been that. You don't have it, it's not your day, but he found it. And the thing for me that stands out is that if you look at that back 9, yeah, he bogeyed 18, but, the game was up by then. You look at the back 9, he's birdied 10, 14, and 15. They are the 3 holes you are meant to birdie. Nobody else did. So that's just Scottie Scheffler in a nutshell, and hugely, hugely impressive. Congratulations to him. I'm sure he's listening. So congratulations, Scottie.
Yeah, well, the thing that I wanted to mention, and so Paul McGinley actually tweeted about this, and I think it really says a lot about his sort of competitive spirit, really, is that he made 10 bogeys over the course of the week. 6 times after that, he made a birdie immediately afterwards. And I think that's the thing, it's you don't compound your mistakes, right? You make a mistake and then you pick yourself up again, and he is better than anyone at that. And I think you're right. It got to, front 9, you're thinking, actually, you know what? This, someone else could win this. I mean, Rahm was obviously the most likely one, but he has that thing, and he's done it several times now, where the very moment that you start thinking that, oh, hold it a second, this could be open, then it was within, because I actually tweeted about this last night, it was within about 45 minutes, it went from being tied to a 3-shot lead. And it's amazing how quick. And obviously, some of that was down to Rahm. I think Rahm will rue not really his finish, actually, but the missed birdie putts on 14 and 15, really, I think, is what really kind of sealed the deal. And after that, he started pushing too hard, didn't he? And then that's when the errors came in down the green mile. But yeah, it was great to see Rahm play well again, and it was brilliant to have a reminder of just how good Scheffler is. It's just so good when he's in. There's not really anything you can say about it. He just gets to that point where he needs to pull something out the bag to win a tournament, and he just has the ability to do that like no one else, really.
Totally. And look, the questions now will be, it's inevitable, how many majors, whatever. And I think we've cautioned against, like, now is the wrong time to ask that question, because whatever you project will be naturally higher. But I think the challenge, it's great. And it could be a storyline that runs for a decade, in the same way that McIlroy's quest for a major, for another major did. What like this golf course again. I don't. We did the golf course last week. I don't think anybody thinks it's a great golf course, but it was presented in great condition. Like the rain they had to have that golf course and keep the greens as firm as they did. I mean, they got loads of money and they've got sub air and all that. But amazing. Like credit to everybody involved in the PGA and Quail Hollow to put on that tournament. I thought the pin positions were great, like a real nice balance, and they didn't like at any time try to artificially ease it and sort of generate that faux excitement of eagles and flying in and stuff like that. They just made it a good test. So with what they had, they did brilliantly. I think although Scheffler hadn't really played there apart from the President's Cup, it is a golf course that you'd think, well, yeah, it makes sense because everything is controllable at Quail Hollow, especially with the rain. And the fascination for me is that there are fewer things you can control in the US Open, and there are even fewer you can control in the Open Championship. And that's something he's always going to have to face. And actually, I think he's got a bit of improving to do there. Like the times he's felt least comfortable have been in those events under those conditions. And it's going to be great to see if he can rise to that challenge, because the other challenges, the challenges of golf when it is weights and measures, paint by numbers, whatever you want to call it, he complete those. No problem.
Yeah.
If they play majors only on courses like Quail Hollow and he stays at this standard, he would honestly, I think he'd get close to Jack. But two of the majors every year do not have those characteristics, and therefore he's going to have to work, and that's great.
I think I do think the right type of US Open setup, I can definitely see him winning in the near future. The Open is the real challenge, I think, for him, and also I'd say for Bryson. You know, I think Bryson he talks about it, doesn't he? His high ball flight and not being able to cope with the wind. Some Scheffler is more the kind of uncontrollable stuff, isn't it? But yeah, that's going to be the golden question. Can he complete the career Grand Slam like McIlroy has? And obviously he's got all the talent and the ability to win tournaments. But it's you raise a good question. Thing I wanted to mention, we obviously had Roberto Castro on last week, and we asked him, and I asked you, for your one pick for the weekend, your outsider. Roberto went for Scheffler, and he went for Harris English as his outsider, 1-2. So congrats to Roberto, and we're going to have to get him back on after that, aren't we?
Yeah, there's not much he can't do, I don't think. And yeah, he was a great guest. I really enjoyed speaking to him. And one of the great pleasures of this podcast, which was your idea, by the way, so thank you, has been like, I never thought I'd speak to Roberto Castro and Mike Lorenzo Vera and Paul McGinley and Laurie Cantor, and we've done that in like 4 months, right? 5 months, and it's been really cool to speak to people who, like, I don't know, we've not spoken to a superstar yet. No offense, Laurie or Paul. We've not spoken to a superstar, but I imagine it would be the same. Like, it's just fun to hear people speak in a sort of more relaxed setting when they're not in sort of tournament mode. And yeah, Roberto was great. He was good value, and clearly, if he fancies a career in golf tipping, then he knows where to go.
And with Scheffler, the interesting thing that I think is, so he obviously said, Scheffler, I'm backing Scheffler any day, basically. He was very, he was very clear on that. And obviously I didn't sort of look at, I don't know if you looked at it the same way, but I was sort of thinking, well, he hasn't proven himself at Quail Hollow. He hasn't got that, there's no form to go on. He played the President's Cup, but there isn't a stroke play event we can look at. What I should have done is actually look at the baseline of how good Scheffler is. And basically any bad course form he has is a mark off, rather than good course form being a mark on, if that makes sense. So I was looking at it the wrong way. And I think I need to start revisiting the way that I look at Scheffler. If he's never played somewhere before, let's assume that he's brilliant. Let's not.
Yeah, that seems like a really logical way to do it. Yeah, and look, the funny thing I suppose is about that and all the analysis, and is not to say I'm not talking myself out of a job here. Right? It's great fun, and I think it's important that we ask the questions. Like when we're talking before a tournament, what are the questions these people have to answer? And with Scheffler, it was, well, he's not actually played here that much. Even you could have asked, I don't think any of us would have been really concerned, but he didn't play the truest, and basically everybody else on the PGA Tour did. Is that going to be a problem for him? And a lot of these questions can be quickly swatted aside by his brilliance. But it was an important question to ask. And actually, you look at the two viable winners of this tournament. The other was Jon Rahm, who, I don't know if he's on record or it's just a well-known fact that he does not like Quail Hollow. It's why he never used to play there. I think he played 6 rounds there, 4 of them in the 2017 PGA, and then 2 in a missed cut of the Wells Fargo. And to your point, like if Jon Rahm's missing a cut, there's a bit of a red flag. So again, that's what great golfers can do, though, isn't it? Like it can be problematic for them. They can feel not comfortable off the tee or whatever it is, and they've always got their greatness to fall back on. It's pretty decent.
Yeah. Some other topics to talk about while we're on the PGA. So Bryson and his ball. So he made some comments, didn't he, yesterday? He basically said, "We need to sort out my ball because it's not going straight," or words to that effect.
Sorry. Yeah, that is exactly what he said. And it's Bryson, and it's why a lot of people love him, I suppose. Quirky or whatever. Forgive me for asking the question, Sam, but could it possibly be what he does to the ball is more of a problem than the ball itself? And maybe it would be more fun as a follower of sport to feel that the answer to this problem, and it is a problem, serious point, his approach play is a problem. The answer to that problem could be found within his many gifts and not in a lab, and not in further ruining of the sport through some technological. We've already got these, the club face stuff where it doesn't matter if he doesn't hit it out the middle, he says, it just still goes straight. That's bad. That's really bad. And I was trying to liken it to something in another sport, but can you imagine some big server, I don't know, John Isner at the height of his powers, I'm hitting these serves great, but they're all going out. I'm going to need a new racket. It's like, John, maybe you want to take something off the serve, because this sport has been around a lot longer than you have. You adapt to its conditions. Yeah, I don't know. He's a prat, isn't he? I'm sorry. He's a prat. Lovable prat to some, but yeah. I the other serious point, single length shafts. It doesn't, what is he at some point going to ask himself, well, my wedges being as long as my 5-iron might be a problem.
Is it helping? I do wonder that, because you probably have a better gauge on these things. Have you sort of tracked his approach play over the years? Because I feel like back in the day, sort of back in sort of PGA Tour days, he was actually a pretty solid approach player. Has it got worse over the years?
Yeah, definitely has. And yeah. That'll be fun for him as well. And I it might sound like I'm being disrespectful. I'm not at all. I just don't like him, and that's fine. But he's a fabulous golfer, and I think on the live point, the fact that he can be this good when we've seen what the money has done to Dustin Johnson, I think it's to his immense credit. It's taken John Rahm a year and a half really to find his. Bryson's got better. It's really impressive. And I think he will relish this quest to solve this final piece. And he talked about the wind and how high he hits his wedges and stuff. But I just wish the solution was him saying, I need to work out, like Rory's started hitting these flighted wedges, and Scottie can take things off it. He can work it both ways. I hit everything with a big high draw. I think I need to go and work on some shots. That would be so much more compelling to me than this idea that he's going to go and actually run the numbers and try and find a golf ball that is just about conforming, that goes straighter. It's the single best argument for a rollback there has been made over the last couple of years.
Well, talking about conforming, let's talk about Rory McIlroy's driver, because there was a lot of discourse around this. Obviously, so in case you don't know, Rory McIlroy's driver was tested before the PGA, and it was deemed to be non-conforming, so he had to replace his driver. Now, some people seem to have taken this as meaning that he has been cheating. He was cheating when he won the Masters, and it's appalling, and he should be stripped of his green jacket. And ultimately, I think it's worth pointing out, and I've had to read into this because I didn't understand it really, and I'm sure a lot of us don't. Basically, a driver can become non-conforming. It can be fully conforming. You hit the ball lots of times with it, and it becomes non-conforming, and that's obviously what's happened. So at any point during a round, your driver could go from being conforming to non-conforming. But obviously, they're not testing it on every single tee, because that would be ridiculous. But they do random tests. I think they tested something like 30% of the players, I want to say, at the PGA Championship. Scheffler was another one who had to replace his driver before the play. Obviously, it didn't make any real difference to Scheffler, but some people are looking at it with McIlroy and thinking, is that the reason that his game was a bit off? His drive was so loose. But then again, it hadn't been good the previous week at the Truist. So, what's your take, Ben?
Well, I mean, it's a shame, and it probably I'm probably as guilty as the next person, really. But the minority sometimes are the noisiest, and anyone who spent the weekend again trying to diminish and demean what he achieved at Augusta because of it's so stupid. You've genuinely basement level stuff. It is pathetic, and these are people who in theory love golf. I don't like Bryson. Just said it 3 minutes ago, right? I'm not going to try and cheapen his achievements as a golfer, in any way, because this is a sport I love. I've grown up watching it. If I can't get my head around why anyone would really relish the idea that they can say, "Oh, the Masters doesn't count." Like, it's not good for anybody. I just don't get it. And the point you've made is says it all, really. A driver can become non-conforming at any moment. So unless you are there are two options: test before every shot, or accept that this is just the way it is, and no one's cheating. It's just how it is. And I think someone said he'd gain half a yard max. I'm sorry, it's not making a difference, right? There's a wider point, and Scheffler touched upon it. Like, I do think it's actually a bit unfair on him. Like, Scheffler overcame it to his immense credit, and it sounds like he was, as usual, meticulously prepared for this happening. I think he said at the Nelson they sensed that it might be close, and there you go. Scheffler's not gone, well, let's play it safe and just take it out of the bag. He's waited to be tested. So if Rory's a cheat, then so's Scottie, and actually neither of them are. It's absolutely fine. But I do think there is a point there around, right, pre-tournament, we're either testing everybody or nobody. I don't really see why you'd stop at 30%. I think that's a valid question, because there is a good chance that there are players in that tournament with non-conforming equipment that could have been found on Wednesday, and they didn't have to have that upheaval in their bag that Rory and Scottie did. And just because Scottie overcame it doesn't invalidate that concern. So I think we could do with a discussion around it, more transparency maybe, but you're always going to have idiots, is the bottom line. There are idiots around, and they rejoiced in showcasing their idiotism.
Idiocracy. I think
it's great to call people idiots where you can't come up with the right word. You know what I'm saying? Like, they spent the weekend advertising to the world that they have maybe 2 brain cells at most. So
it is odd, and sometimes I look at some of these accounts, and maybe it's a Twitter thing. I don't know. You look at some of these accounts, and you do sort of think, well, were you actually golf fans 5 years ago, or have you just sort of turned up in a sort of post-live world and with an agenda? But actually, if Liv was to go away tomorrow, it may not. It may be around for another 10 years. But if it was to go away tomorrow, do you still remain a golf fan? Are you still tuning in for the, whatever it is? Maybe it's the PGA Championship. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of sort of plastic followers of golf at the moment. I could be wrong.
It's a great question, that, and I think the bigger point is it's a symptom of the age we live in. And we're saying, again, it's like a bit of self-awareness. We're talking on a podcast, right? But people want to be heard, and everyone thinks they have a right to be heard, and that their opinions are worth listening to. And for many, many millions of people, that's true. But it often pays to be controversial or to hitch your wagon to something, doesn't it? Right? Rather than just be happy about everything. And I'm anti-live. Some people might say that I do that in a performative way, but there are definitely people who've built their entire social media or online profiles in this way that means that everything live is great, and any questioning of live is a problem. And therefore, if I can attack someone like McIlroy as the sort of foremost player on the PGA Tour, then I will do it. And Dustin Johnson's a great example, right? I tweeted last week about Dustin Johnson. The guy has just produced his worst ever major performance, and he's done that 4 times. His four of his 5 worst major performances of his entire career have happened in the last 2 years, right? That's not complicated to work out, is it? He has decided to join Liv and just wind down a little bit, and that is absolutely fine. But why are we pretending? Why is anyone pretending otherwise? And I lost count of how many people came back and said, well, no, he had injuries, and he's turned 40. I'm sorry, but if you're not even willing to consider the idea that he might just have decided, great, that's me done, because that's what's happened. But people can't admit that, because to do so will be to show some sort of weakness as regards their loyalty to Liv. Fealty is supposed to be the word we use, isn't it? So, yeah, it's what happens in this day and age. And I am guilty, because I spent a lot of last week debating with these people. So more fool me.
Right, well, I think we're going to move on from PGA Championship, just in the interest of time, to some other things. And the Korn Ferry Tour, I will mention, it was the Advent Health Championship, and SH Kim won, convincing victory. And the reason this is interesting for me is I do this game on Twitter every year. I think you generally join in, Ben, where I say, give me a name of one player who's outside the top 100 in the world who's going to have a big year. And I think it was 2 years ago, I said SH Kim, and I was so confident with my pick. He ended up losing his PGA Tour card, going back to the Korn Ferry. So it was a bad shout at the time, but maybe it was a good shout long term. Maybe I went a bit early on him. I did exactly the same with Wyndham Clark, actually. I was 2 years before he won the US Open. So yeah,
you're backing SH Kim for next year's US Open is what we're saying here, right?
Possibly.
I had Wyndham Clark in your game the year he did emerge and win twice. I didn't make any money from that that view. And then I had Joe Highsmith last year. So I was or did I have him this year? No, I think it was last year. I think I said Joe Highsmith last year. Can't remember who I said this year.
Well, we'll have to have a look. But whoever I said this year, we'll have to. In fact, I know who I said this year. I said Potgieter.
Oh wow! There you go. He's more than justified that.
Well, he has, but he hasn't won yet. But I reckon give him another year, maybe 2, and he could be the US Open champion. Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe not with his short game at the moment. But anyway, SH Kim, a very talented player. I messaged Ben Ann about it a few months ago when he was in contention on Korn Ferry Tour, and he said this guy's an absolute flusher. He's good. I'm amazed he hasn't won yet. So
that's interesting, because his short, statistically, you'd say, well, his short game is unreal, but he needs to hit it better if he's going to make it on the PGA Tour. And the fact that someone like Ben Ann is advocating for his long game, maybe there is a very high ceiling there. So we'll see. But he's clearly on his way back to the PGA Tour in August or September, whenever it is.
To be honest, I may be quoting Ben incorrectly there. He may not use the word flusher. He may have said something like he's great. He's a really good player, really talented player. I mean, he may not have sort of referenced his ball striking necessarily, but anyway, the sentiment was this guy's really good.
He's another one who's really young as well, isn't he? He's not, not like 30. So yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes I forget how young people are, and a good example really is Hitsatsune, who was obviously in contention for a while at PGA Championship. He's 22 years old. I thought he was like 25, 26. I mean, he's really young.
Isn't
really
he having a great rookie season? I know he fell away last week, but he's having a really, really good rookie season. I hope he keeps his card. He's got a lot of those finishes that are like 20th or whatever, where you're not actually getting that many points. Like the guy who has 2 top 5s and a load of missed cuts is going to leapfrog you there, but he's certainly playing to a really good standard. So yeah, onwards and upwards for him too.
Yeah, I can see him winning this year at the right type of event. They definitely want to monitor. Last event to mention before we move on to sort of in the news. So the Dutch Ladies Open, Mimi Rhodes has won for the 3rd time this year. So it's a rookie season and she's won 3 times. So clearly had immense talent and someone who could potentially be contending for majors. I mean, I don't obviously follow the women's games as closely as many, but if you're winning 3 times at a ladies European Tour level, you must be very, very good.
Yeah, it's been a good few weeks for Europeans. So yeah, onwards to the Solheim Cup, I guess. I think we'd be surprised already if she wasn't there. But it's not always that simple, is it? No. Rose Zhang probably hasn't quite lived up to the expectations, the very, very high expectations placed upon her when she won early on in her pro career. So we'll see. But so far, so good, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. In the news, so not a whole lot in this section, but a couple of things to mention. So last week, Rory confirmed he's going to play the Australian Open both this year and next year. So it's at Royal Melbourne this year in December, and it's going to be Kingston Heath next year. So these are 2 of the very best courses in the world, really, and it's huge. It's not often that the really big names travel to Australia. I mean, who knows? How much money he's got. He's been offered to do that, but it's a very good thing, and hopefully others will follow suit. Whether or not there'll be sort of money in the coffers to entice some of the other big names, I don't know, but it's a good thing.
It is, yeah. I mean, the reality, we'd all love it if he just wanted to go down there in December and waive his right to an appearance fee or whatever. Like I think, that doesn't seem an unreasonable thing to ask of a Masters champion, actually. But the fact that he's there is the bottom line good thing. It'll breathe life into the event, which has definitely struggled the last few years. With the split field and DP World Tour co-sanctioning, it's not really been what it could be. And as you say, the timing's great because they go into probably the best 2 courses, and Rory's just won the Masters, so it's all come together beautifully. And hopefully, we look back upon this time as the turning point for the Australian Open.
Yeah, quite possibly. And it's interesting, actually, that Rory's playing both this and obviously it's not been confirmed yet, but it's been strongly hinted that he's going to be playing the Indian Open. And I'm sort of wondering, post winning the Grand Slam, whether he's like, you know what, now it's time for me to sort of explore a bit. I can afford to do this. I don't need to focus on so much on getting that elusive Grand Slam. That's done. So, I can start to support kind of global golf a bit more. It may not be that, but it feels like there may be an element of that. But it's always on at an awkward time for us to watch live over here, isn't it? But I'll definitely look forward to watching that. And the other good thing about Rory being in the field, of course, is we'll get a better price on people like Elvis Smiley. So,
couldn't resist including Elvis, could you?
Yes, of course. The other thing to mention in the news, there's a bit of a sad one, really, in many ways. So Eddie Pepperell, who's a favourite of many people, said that he's taking a break. So he withdrew during the Turkish Airlines Open 2 weeks ago. Withdrew mid-round just because he was sort of struggling really mentally, and he's decided he's going to take a break. I think he said for a month. This is on the Chipping Forecast. He mentioned this his podcast. So yeah, it's going to step away from the game, and hopefully he'll be able to come back with a sort of new lease of life. But it's a shame because he's obviously immensely talented player, and he's obviously very open about his struggles.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of people who listen to this who have mental health problems. So hopefully, I think it was Mental Health Awareness Week last week, I believe, and the DP World Tour did a really good feature with Paul Waring. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's worth watching. And I'm sure Eddie will be, as usual, sort of forthright self on his podcast, which you can listen to after this one. And keep people updated. Everybody wishes him well, I'm sure. I don't think it didn't sound like I don't want to downplay it. That's the wrong thing to do. But I just think he needs a break. I don't think this is the end of anything like that. And the interesting thing, though, reading sort of further detail, was him talking about how his iron players really completely left him. And talking about how good I think he describes himself as like, I was genuinely world class 3 or 4 years ago, and it's just gone. But he says he's hitting it better than ever off the tee. So, me being me and the way I look at golf, like I'd be thinking, well, that sounds promising actually, because if he's been that good with his approaches, and he certainly was one of the best 2 or 3 on the DP World Tour, then
he can get that back.
Hopefully he can get it back, and if he can combine it with keeping it in play off the tee, then he's he's a cracking player, isn't he? So
yeah, well, in the unlikely case that Eddie's listening, we wish you all the best, Eddie, and we look forward to seeing you back on the DP World Tour, or the Hotel Planet Tour, or both. Right, a little extra section to put in here, Ben. So you may remember, if you've been listening since the start, that in one of our early episodes, we made our early Ryder Cup picks for the European side at Bethpage this year. It's fair to say mine particularly haven't aged well. Ben's maybe slightly better than mine, but a reminder, Ben went for, both of us went for McIlroy, Fleetwood, Rahm, Hatton, Oberg, Lowry, which I'll say are basically definites. And slight question mark.
I think you missed Hovland there, didn't you? Did you miss Hovland?
I intentionally missed him because some people have raised the question mark as to whether he's a lock. I still think he is. I'll still be surprised if he's not there. But
he's 100% going to be at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah,
unless he decides to walk away and form a death metal band, he'll be there.
The other one that we both agreed was a lock at the beginning of the season, which I think there's a bit more question mark over, is Fitzpatrick. Now, he played pretty well last week, which will definitely help. And hopefully he's kind of turning a corner. It feels like he's turning a corner looking at his stats over the last few weeks. So definitely one to monitor. I still think he'll make it. McIntyre, we both picked. I think he will make it as well. The last 3 really are the kind of the ones where I think we've come a cropper really, Ben. You've gone for the Højgaard twins, which still both of which could make it. And we both went for Aaron Rai. I went for Nicholas Norgard, which I'm slightly questioning myself on, although he did play pretty well at Myrtle Beach a couple of weeks ago. Pavon, last week I would have been looking at myself thinking, what am I doing putting him in there? But obviously he played well last week. So maybe it's not quite as bad as I'm looking at. But then you look at some of the other people who've played well this year. Sepp Straka has obviously now won twice. I mean, he's definitely going to be there. So someone's going to have to make way. You've got Dietrich, who's won. He's dropped off a little bit since winning. But then you've got Justin Rose, who obviously we talked a lot about. Was runner-up in the Masters. He's very likely to be there. So all of a sudden, people like Aaron Rai, you're thinking he's really going to have to do something if he wants to get a place. What are you thinking, Ben?
Yeah,
at
so
this
I've just
point.
run through the standings. So it's McIlroy, Lowry, Rasmus Højgaard. Because of his form towards the end of last year, Rasmus Højgaard is very prominent in the points list. It is
Mm.
one points list this year for context, and it can be hard to sort of track and follow. He's got over 1,000 points, and that gives him sort of a 170 point lead over, or almost a 200 point lead over Tommy Fleetwood, who is just outside the team, Ludwig Åberg. Now that in itself is an interesting dynamic because it's going to be 6 qualifiers, 6 picks. Those two obviously would be auto picks. And I think whatever does happen, like Hovland's 12th as well, like whatever does happen, there are going to be some players who are auto picks that we don't really have to think about. I mean, Straka was an egregious oversight from both of us. He's clearly in. But suddenly, with Justin Rose at the Masters, basically, you could have the same team except you've swapped to Højgaard. Like that,
Yeah,
that is
it's possible.
entirely. But I would say it's probably about favourite now. If you were to name the team now, I think you're swapping from Rome, you're swapping Nikolai out, Rasmus in, and that's it.
And the rest is the same.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, like that's where we are at the moment. But what's fascinating is you've got Alex Noren is a definite runner. I thought it was interesting that Paul McGinley made that pretty unequivocal. Now he's not necessarily going to be involved in the decision-making process, but I think he'd be pretty close to it. And I think we heard from Paul, didn't we, earlier in the year on Slice, that their algorithm has been adjusted for experience, and to have someone who's played so much golf in the States and Ryder Cup and now contended for the US PGA and did really well. Like a special word for Alex Noren. He plays 7 rounds of golf now in 8 rounds of golf now in 7 months, and he's contended for a major.
It's amazing.
So there are loads of players like that. Matt Wallace played better last week. There's a lot that can change. Thomas Dietrich would only need to rediscover his best, but I think the bottom line is we're probably talking 1, 2, or 3 places at most. The other 9 are pretty established now.
I think that's it, and that just shows how much you need to do if you're someone like a Nicholas Norgard or an Aaron Rai or a Matthew Pavon. You're going to have to win a PGA Tour event, I think, to have it even a sniff. And it's just so hard, And Laurie Cantor we spoke to, we sort of thought maybe he'll have a chance. Again, he's going to have to do something really impressive over the next few months. But either way, it'll be interesting to watch what unfolds over the next few months. Right, World of Golf this week, Ben. Now, the first thing to mention is the US Open qualifying, which is ongoing at the moment. I've got the leaderboard here. I can say that Jordan Smith is currently leading. So this is Walton Heath final qualifying. So he's looking in good stead. You got Lacroix, Matthew Jordan, Eduardo Molinari's up there, Guido Migliozzi. So there's some really good players. Angel Ayora is not far behind. So that will be in the next few hours. We will know more about that. There was also there's qualifiers in Japan earlier on. So 3 players made it through there, and then there's one in Texas later on today, which has got a really strong field. And this, of course, is in a couple of weeks' time. You have what they call the longest day in golf, don't you, in the US, where there's a whole load more final qualifiers. But it'd be interesting to see who comes out of the Walton Heath qualifying round, because that looks really competitive.
Yeah. And just a very quick word. Adrian Meronk retired after 25 holes at 10 over par. When we're talking about Ryder Cup, he basically stone last.
Wow.
So, things are not going well for him at the moment. He had, back end of last year, I think he changed coach, and it's just not working at the moment. So we'll see how he does. But yeah, I think Joe Dean has posted the clubhouse target on -6 as we talk. My suspicion is that's 1 shy, but we'll see.
He's been struggling a bit lately, actually, Joe Dean. So it's good to see him playing some better stuff. Right, DP World Tour. It's the Soudal Open this week at Rinkven. So Rinkven has hosted this event for the last 3 years, and 2 years before that, or sorry, two years pre-COVID, it hosted the Belgian Knockouts. Obviously, that was a different format, but same course. So we got a decent amount of course form to go on. Any immediate thoughts on this one, Ben?
Yeah, I love this event. It's kind of one of the DP World Tour events that really levels the playing field. Like the contrast between the players in first and second last year, like Nicholas Norgard, Thomas Pieters were beaten by Nacho Elvira, and he cannot compete with them off the tee. But around here, he can, and there are loads of reasons for that. Largely that it's short and tight and tree lined, but also that even like there's a drivable par 4, but it's drivable for everybody. So it's not an auto drivable; it's a very high risk drivable par 4. So these are great tournaments. I think they're for me they really sum up the beauty of the DP World Tour on a sort of away from those marquee events. It's like, give me a Soudal Open. I love it. I love watching it. Love previewing them. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Good. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in our fantasy update. A course that I particularly enjoy is on the PGA Tour this week, Colonial. So it's the Charles Schwab Challenge. Colonial's hosted this event for many, many years. Another tight tree line course. Really doesn't particularly favour any particular style of player. It's another one where big hitters can win. If they sort of rein it in off the tee. Because everyone has to. You can't overpower the course, which is great. Generally plays pretty firm, and it's a good course. Scheffler is in the field. He is a 5-2 favourite. I mean, sort of the prices you're getting on Scheffler now are just they're getting Tiger low, aren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah.
You can't argue with it, really, can you? I mean, there's just one note I wanted to make on that, Sam, is that it was redesigned before last year's renewal, and yet I think the striking thing is that it didn't really change a lot. In terms of scoring, it didn't change a lot. If you read some of the comments players were making, they were saying really this is about the greens. So the greens have a lot of the greens have changed in nature, but the testing getting to them is basically the same. And you look, Davis Riley won it. Well, he'd almost won it 2 years before. Colin Morikawa almost won it when he should have won it when Daniel Berger did. So I think it's definitely not one of those redesigns where we rip up the form book. It's one where we say, actually, that form book is still very, very valid. So, yeah.
Yeah, good note. The other events to talk about, so the Hotel Planner Tour is the Danish Golf Challenge. Now, you had some notes on this, I believe, Ben.
Yeah, I can't remember them, though. Yeah, it's a really quirky course. It ends with a par 3. I think there are only 6 par 4s. Is that right? No, 8 par 4s. So there are 5 par 3s, 5 par 5s. 6 of the 8 par 4s are in the first 7 holes or something. It's absolutely bonkers. It's named after. It's got a new name, an old name, and a nickname. So I think the locals call it Hans Christian Andersen Golf Club. Hans Christian Andersen's everywhere in Danish golf because a year ago they played this at Odense, and every hole at Odense is named after one of his fairy tales or characters from his fairy tales. So the bloke's got a monopoly on modern golf design in Denmark, which is a remarkable thing to say. It's exposed. It's by the sea. There are a couple of players I thought were sort of interesting for it. But Davis Bryant is probably the one to keep a close eye on the Challenge Tour right now. But watch out as well for Adam Wallin. He is a young Swede who was very good in college, and his name's just come back to me in time. This is the sort of thing you're going to get if you sign up for the newsletter. We're going to take a look at these smaller tournaments and try and pick out just a couple of things to note. And yeah, the note here is that they've changed course and it is funky. So who knows what it'll really play like.
Great. Right, Korn Ferry Tour. It is the Visit Knoxville Open. I'll just rattle through the rest. So LPGA Tour is the Riviera Maya Open at Mayakoba. This is near Tulumban, actually, and not far from Chichen Itza.
And how much I love Tulum.
Yes. Ladies European Tour is the Jabra Ladies Open at Evian Resort. And that's not a major, is it? There's a major called the Evian. I'm not just skipping over
this
on a
isn't
major.
The Evian. Yeah. Martin Coover plays out that course, by the way. I learned that last week. So, yeah. I mean, it's unlikely he enters the second or third women's major of the season, but if he does, watch out.
And the last event to mention the Asian Tour is the Cologne Korea Open. I think Minkyu Kim is defending there. I'm assuming he's in the field. But I don't know if any of the big names heading back over for that. Anyone like a Tom Kim?
You'd never rule it out in terms of Sungjae, would you? Because he just is a law unto himself. But I don't know, to be honest with you.
No, one thing I was intrigued about actually, Tom Kim, I noticed was in the field for the US Open final qualifying today in Texas. I mean, in my head, I know he's not been playing great lately, but in my head, I was amazed that he wasn't already qualified. But it just shows you how far he's fallen in the last sort of 12 months.
It does, doesn't it? He's really struggling, and although he made the cut last week, it was all short games. So his long games, I think ever since he was anointed global superstar on that Netflix show, things have rather gone downhill. I know he's become divisive because he plays slowly and he's a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but I like him. I like Tom Kim. I'd like to see him playing well again.
It's a really interesting one. How he's gone from being, when he first came out on the PGA Tour, when he first earned his card, he was really, really popular, wasn't he? Everyone's like, "Oh, this is fun-loving Tom Kim." He's like this sort of young, bright energy, and then sort of started playing slow a bit. Had a couple of incidents. I can't even remember what.
Punched a locker, didn't he? He punched a locker.
No, I feel like it was something prior to the punching the locker, like something a little bit sort of petulant. But I don't know. Anyway, there's been maybe a few things where people have really turned on him. He's gone from being one of the most popular to feels like one of the least popular players on tour in a very short space of time.
That's true. Yeah. Welcome to the modern world, I guess.
I suppose so. Yeah. But I like him. I like him too. He's a.
I like Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, so how can you not like Tom Kim?
Exactly. Right. Player tracker, Ben. Now, Elvis, I think I mentioned it, earned an invite to the PGA Championship. And for a while, actually, it looked like he might be on for a pretty good finish. Certainly at the halfway point, he was sort of right up there. He sort of fell off over the weekend, unfortunately, and he finished tied 72nd. But, it's his first major on US soil. He has played the Open before, but first US major to make the cut is impressive in itself. And it'll be great experience for him to be playing a course like that under major conditions. So fair play to him, and he's in the field this week for the Soudal. Ayora is playing, as we mentioned earlier on. He's playing the US Open final qualifying at Walton Heath, and then he'll be heading over to the Soudal Open. Thoughts on his chances, Ben? Well, thoughts on both of their chances this week?
Yeah, more Elvis than Ayora, I would think, but this is one of those courses, very similar to the courses in Kenya, where if you want to, you can try and attack them, and if you're on it, it can work. Like it's not that driver is completely not an option. You have options, which is part of the charm. So if he sneaks into the US Open, which he's got a chance to do as we're talking now, then it could be a good week for him. I noted that, didn't he play with Luke Donald in Turkey? I feel like he did.
That's right.
So
yeah.
that in itself is interesting. I mean, it's going to happen a year too soon, isn't it? And on that, just going back to our previous conversation, Torbjorn Olsen played with Luke Donald on Sunday at the PGA and played pretty well. And those things can be overblown or overplayed or whatever. But he's another one who's definitely finding some form and in the conversation, because if we're talking about that upgrade for experience. So yeah. But back to Angel Ayora. The nature of a player tracker is we're going to have to accept the ebb and flow of a rookie season on the DP World Tour. But I'm retain all my faith in him. Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm not sure that I'd necessarily be backing Elvis this week or putting him on fantasy team, and that's mainly because I never really like it when players are traveling back and forth from the States. It's just jet lag, all that kind of thing. Playing in a major the week before, all those things added up, it just feels so unlikely that you're going to then go and contend. I mean, I could be wrong. It has happened before. I remember Louis Oosthuizen winning the Malaysian Open, I want to say, after contending in the Masters, but it's rare, let's be honest.
Yeah, and it's rare for players like Elvis, for whom it's all new. They're not flying private. It's it's different. Like Paul Casey came over and won the Dubai Desert Classic after he played in the Amex, but Paul Casey's been doing that for 20 years. For Elvis, this is all new. So I share your concerns. Yeah, but he's young, so he could do it. But it's just you have to have it in mind. And I don't really think the betting ever adjusts for it. Like the market is going to make him the price it makes him.
Yeah,
it's not going to try and calculate what that might do. And if on balance, it's a negative. So yeah, same as you.
That's fair. Right, fantasy update. So firstly, to mention our leader overall is Lewis Blaine. Again, I feel like it's changing hands every week, which is good. It's exciting. This is what we want. Everyone vying for that place, playing against us at Sunningwell Golf Club.
At Sunningwell. Having heard that I recently hit the ball 1 yard, I bet they can't wait.
I mean, having heard about your flop shot extravaganza, I'm sure that everyone wants to witness that live, Ben.
The irony of that, Sam, is that I'm a dreadful chipper. That's the thing. Like, I've got the chipping yips. I honestly, sorry, we haven't got time for this, but yesterday I went back through my round in my head because I remember every shot I've ever hit, but I don't remember what to buy from Tesco. I did not, for a player of a high handicap, I did not miss the middle of the club face on a single iron shot. Like, every single one of them I hit really well, but I can't drive it and I can't chip. Golf.
One-dimensional. You're
I hold
basically
250 footers as well, by the way. I'm like a 4 handicap putter.
and
Anyway.
you basically sound like the reverse Bryson.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Maybe we should form some sort of team.
Right. Where was I? Sorry.
I don't know. Sorry, I'm
Fancy
hijacking
update.
it.
Yeah, sorry. So Lewis Blaine is leading over Garvin Howarth. So 1 and 2. That's changing hands a lot. So well done to those two. Right, our fancy picks, Ben. Soudal Open. Who are your 6? Let's hear them.
It's time for me to just completely go rogue. All right, so you can forget about Jordan Smith and all that stuff. The other factor here, more seriously, is I think Jordan Smith will come anyway. It's not far from Walton Heath to Belgium. These guys have got bigger targets in mind, but there is a chance you get the odd withdrawal from the Soudal Open from those who've been at Walton Heath on Monday. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless. So anyway, my 6 are all kind of down the list. Bernd Wiesberger played a bit better last time. Marcus Schindler, was going to place last time, didn't because he made a mess of the last hole. Fabrizio Zanotti, right sort of player for this course. That's about it. Ben Schmidt, I think is sort of interesting. I think he's sort of one of those. I'm trying to weigh him up, but I think he might like this. And then the two I'm particularly sweet on are Todd Clements and Jakob Skov Ellison.
Yes, love to hear it, Ben. I love
Your
to
guy.
see Ellison in there.
Yeah, he's just basically like Kuvra. Like they're playing really well, and Kuvra went and won, and I could see him doing the same, whether this week or in the next sort of few months. I think he could be really good, couldn't he?
I agree. Well, I've been preaching about this for months. I mean, you famously put me off selecting him as my player tracker pick. So
he is a Bella Rossellini rule. Yeah, sorry about that.
But anyway, you'll not be surprised to hear that he is in my team. I wanted to put Bairstow in my team again, but I've only got one use left. I just can't. I want to save it. I don't know when I'm saving it for, but I do think that he would go well. But I've not used Bairstow, but Ollison I am using. Campillo looks like the right type of sort for this track. I think. He's finished 5th and 15th here before. He was 2nd in Turkey, Ben, and he led the field in strokes gained approach. My favourite stat, I think, when I'm looking at who's going to play well, especially on this type of course. So I think he's a very solid player. He's obviously won several times. Ollison, we mentioned, right? Matthew Jordan, he's playing well in the US Open final qualifying. By the way, I made my picks before final qualifying had started, so I've not been like, oh, this guy's playing well. I'm gonna add them to my fantasy team. Matthew Jordan, good record at Ringfen as well, 15th and 5th. Migliozzi, again, so happens that he's playing well in the US Open final qualifying, but also he played well in Turkey. It feels like he's found something in the last few weeks, and he's a winner on this course back when it was a Belgian knockout. So, and
it must be about a year to the day since he won the Dutch Open as well, which is a nice little biorhythms one, if you like,
Yeah, I do like the biorhythms. Yeah. So I think he's a good.
Harry Higgs nearly won, didn't he? And that was almost exactly a year since he went back to back on the Corn Ferry Tour. So
it really does happen, doesn't it? It really is a thing.
Seems. I wonder what my best month is.
Yeah, surely it's May. I mean, you hit your best ever shot in May.
Definitely not May. Although we had a good week last week.
And my last two. So this one I'm particularly confident on. Can I say Eduardo Molinari?
You just got the top 5 from US Open qualifying. This is scandalous.
I promise you, I made these picks before.
I believe.
I promise you. I know no one will believe me, but it's true. But
he's putting better, isn't he? He's putting better.
He is. But you look at his results this year. The thing that sort of draw my attention is. So he finished in the top 10 here in 2022, and he'd been playing reasonably well at the time. Okay, the last 2 years he's been 59th and 41st, but he'd been playing terribly. So you ignore those, right? You look at how well he did when he was last playing well, and he's tied 9th. He's playing even better this year, and obviously playing well this week. It's a perfect type of course for him. I would look back to when I was following the DP World Tour however long ago, we're probably talking 15 years ago when he won the Scottish Open at Loch Lomond. It's that type of course for me. It's he likes that kind of tree lines. You got to tell the course tells you what you got to do. I think he's great this week. I'm almost as enthusiastic about him as I was about Justin Thomas last week, who obviously missed the cut. So take it with a pinch of salt. My last one. This is a bit of an outsider, but I don't see why not. Jens Dantorp. He was runner-up here a couple of years ago. maybe a possible DLF link. I don't know. Forstrom played really well at DLF.
Definitely a decent one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, Dan Torp is the last of my 6. So yeah. Right, Ben, we're going to do highest bidder. Are you ready?
Yeah, we need a jingle, don't we?
We probably do. Yes. Shall I work on something?
Well,
right.
You do enough. maybe just hum something. There you go.
Right. Highest bidder. Here we go. Since 2015. Oh, I like
Good
since
start.
2015 questions.
Very good start. Yeah.
How many different Scottish winners can you name on the DP World or PGA Tour?
Okay.
Either or. Okay.
My tendency is to go too high with these, but
15.
Okay.
I'm going 5.
Oh, I've gone 8. Sorry.
8? Okay, no, that's fine. Right. Let's hear them, Ben.
Callum Hill,
Definitely.
Grant Forrest,
Yep.
Russell Knox,
Yes.
Robert McIntyre,
Yep.
Scottish, Ewan Ferguson.
Yep.
So there's your 5. So you've won. I need 3 more Scottish winners in the last 10 years. Do we know how many there were? Because if there are only 5, I've been stitched up.
So this hasn't actually been declared. I should say this is from Harry. Harry hasn't actually said how many there are, but I would imagine there'd be more than that. But
Got to be more than that. I've gone massively too high again. Scottish winners. Oh, Mark Warren won the Austrian thing. What a day that was! Streaming the Austrian Open during COVID. 150.
of course that was during COVID. Yeah, okay, that is recent enough. Yeah, well done, 6.
David Law.
Yes.
Vic Open.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Yeah. I thought D-Law and D-Law won.
Very good. Can you talk so I can think? Why don't you tell people about how they can sign up to our newsletter?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. So our newsletter, I was going to mention this after highest bidder, but let's do it now. A reminder that our newsletter is going to be launching in around about a week's time. So please do look at our socials, click the link, enter your email address, and you'll get all kinds of stuff through. Well, it'll only be once a week. We're not going to harass you with lots of emails, so you're not going to get fed up of us. But yes, this is a good time to sign up. Right, Ben, have you got your 8?
Or PGA Tour?
Yes, either or.
Oh, thank heavens. Martin Laird. He won the Shriners for like the 3rd time, didn't he? 3 or 4 years ago. Martin Matthews was on him at a huge price. So yeah.
Well done, Ben.
Thanks.
That's very good. 8. Okay.
There can't be many more. There genuinely can't.
They can't. I'll look this up after this, but yeah, I'd be surprised if it's into double figures. So you've done very well there. Another 5 points for you. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe it was one of those. It's kind of like hard. We try and answer these quite quickly now, don't we? Because we don't want to sort of waste time thinking about how many. And I sort of thought, yeah, 5 I can confidently get. Maybe if I'd have pushed myself, I could have got more. But you kind of, I'm worried to go too high nowadays after what's happened lately. So.
Well, clearly I was on my absolute limit because there's no way I can think of a 9th. Like we'd be here all day and I wouldn't get a 9th. So
well, and also you gave me a little chance to plug the newsletter, so now I don't need to do that now. So why don't you sign us off?
Everyone's happy. Everyone's happy.
Exactly. But yeah, no. Please do sign up for the newsletter. Thank you for listening this week. We hope you enjoyed the PGA Championship. We're back for the normal DP World Tour week with the Soudal Open, and we'll be back next week.